my name is Elena Love, and you're watching EverydayDish.tv. I'm a raw food chef, and I'm here today to teach you how to make a better than beef. And that can be used as a taco filling, which I'm going to show you how to make a tamale spiral. You can also use it in a salad. You can use it for anywhere you would use a ground beef for a taco filling or something like that. So what we're going to start with today, the reason I'm really excited about this recipe, and it's one of my favorites, is because it's nut-free. And anybody that's been eating raw food for any length of time knows that there's a lot of nuts involved. So whenever I can get a nut-free recipe that's really flavorful and delicious, I get excited. The other thing is, if you've ever been making juice and you have all the leftover pulp, especially carrot juice or beet juice, and you think, wow, this seems like such a waste to get rid of it. Well, you never have to get rid of it again. You can save this pulp and make your own taco filling. So what I've got today is a combination of root vegetables. This is carrot juice, or carrot pulp from the carrot juice, beet pulp, and celery root pulp. Maybe some of you have never seen celery root, and I want to show you what that looks like. It looks like a big knobby thing, like a kind of ugly on the outside. When you cut it open, it's white and beautiful. I have some recipes to show how to make mashed potatoes with it, raw mashed potatoes. You can use it for wraps. You can use it a lot of different things in raw foods, in soups. It's really flavorful and salty, kind of like celery, but more salty. And so that's in here as well. I did a combination of the three because I like the color that it creates when it's all together. And I also like the flavors of the combination of the three because it's a little bit sweet from the beet and carrots, and then the celery root brings in the saltiness. So as you can see, even as I'm pouring it into this bowl, it's got like a kind of a little bit of a texture that it could look, once you put all the sauces on it, like a little bit like a ground beef or something to that effect. So it's a great little filling. Now I'm going to make this sauce, the flavorful sauce, which is what's really going to make it taste good. Of course, like this, it's not going to be that exciting. Once you put the sauce on, it's going to change everything. So I'm going to put this aside for a minute, and I'm going to show you how to make the sauce. We're going to use sun-dried tomatoes, and I buy just regular dried sun-dried tomatoes, not in oil, but just plain. We don't want to add the oil into them. And I soaked these for about 2 hours, and it's got a lot of water, but not too much. You can see I've got enough water in here to cover it, but it's not really full of water. So it's about a cup of sun-dried tomatoes with water to cover. The next thing I'm going to add in is chili seasoning mix. And you can see all these recipes that I'm showing you here on everyday.tv. We've got cumin powder as well, and onion powder. Now, people ask me, well, what's the difference between fresh raw onions and onion powder? The difference is when you use an onion powder, it's more savory tasting, it's denser, it's got more of a cooked flavor to it. I call it filling in the gaps. It just kind of gives you that soothing, comforting flavor. It's not so hot and raw like a raw onion. So we've got onion powder, and we've got garlic powder we're adding as well. For the same reason, it's more of a cooked flavor, and it's more of a deeper, richer flavor. Cayenne pepper in there to make it a little more spicy if you want. I'm using a mineral salt. All my recipes call for mineral salt. And what a mineral salt would be is like a Himalayan salt, real salt from Utah, or Celtic sea salt. Any of these salts have 82 minerals or more in them. When you're buying a white sea salt or a white table salt, all the minerals have been stripped. A reason people have high blood pressure and different problems from salt is because the body cannot recognize it as a food, but when it's in its whole form, it hasn't been stripped of any of its minerals or processed in any way other than ground, your body will recognize it and actually be able to use the salt. So I'm going to put that in. And I've got some miso. You want to use dark miso, and I'm going to put that in. Now, whenever you're using miso, that's also going to give it a richness of flavor, especially for if you're trying to do like a meat substitute. A dark miso is going to give it more of a meaty flavor. And then I've got extra virgin, raw, cold processed organic olive oil. And I'm going to put that in. You can also use a hemp seed oil or some other kind of raw oil in there, but I do love the olive oil in this recipe. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all that and blend it up. And I'm using today a Vitamix blender. It's a very high-powered blender. It's great for raw foods or anything that's got a little more, needs a little more extra work in the blender. You can use a regular blender for this as well, though. So I'm going to start on low, and I'm going to turn it on. I'm going to add a little bit of water to it because it sounds like the blender might be working a little harder than I need it to, so I'm just going to drizzle some water in the top. Just enough though. I still want it to be nice and thick. I don't want it to be soupy. I want it to be like a thick sauce. And always make sure the top of your blender is plugged. Great, so that looks like we got it nice and smooth in there. It's blended up. You can use a spatula in there if you need to get it a little more blended, but it looks like we did a great job of getting it nice and smooth. I'm going to show you what it looks like as I pour it into my bowl. It's got like a nice smooth texture to it. It's got all those seasonings and oil already blended in. And it smells amazing. I wish you could be here in person because you would smell all the onion and garlic smells and the savory, cumin powder and chili powder. And I do want to say with the chili powder, I didn't mention that it's actually a chili seasoning mix and not a chili just of ground chilies. You want to buy the mix. It has different seasonings like cumin and onion powder and chili all mixed together to make it taste like a chili flavor. All right, so get everything you can out of the bottom of that blender. And then the last thing we're going to add into this is some minced onions. And make sure that they're small enough. You don't want to be biting into big chunks of onions. This is going to add extra flavor to this. And this is one of those dishes that the longer it sits, the more flavorful it'll become from the flavor of the onions. And then what I'm going to do is just use my spatula to mix that all up together. And it actually looks really good. I've got a chunk of vegetable. I'm going to take that out. And the color of the beet, you got to make sure you do a balance. I used less beets than carrots because I didn't want it to be really bright red. I wanted the beet to add some color, but not so much that it turned bright red because I want it to look authentic, like more of a meaty look to it, especially for anybody that you're trying to trick. It's kind of fun to feed it to people and they say, oh my gosh, that was so good, and they don't even know that they're eating vegetarian food. All right, so just mix that up real well. And now, like I mentioned before, you can eat this. You can save this in your refrigerator for 4 or 5 days. You can eat it on top of your salads, which is one of my favorite ways to eat it, just like an ice cream scoop size scoop on your salad, and it'll add a lot of flavor to any green salad. And you can also dehydrate this into little crispy crackers or something if you add a little ground flax meal. In this whole batch, you could add about a cup of ground flax seeds and mix it real good and make your own little cookies, or not cookies, but burger shapes and cracker shapes, and have your own little crunchy treats that are nut-free as well. So it looks like I've got it nice and mixed. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my tortillas back out. I showed you in the last segment how to make your own tortillas. And so I'm going to take those out and show you how to make a little roll out of this. Okay, so now I've got my corn wrap out that I showed you in another segment, the corn tortillas or corn wraps. And I'm going to put my better than beef filling right on top of that. You can put all of it on or you can put part of it on. I'm going to go ahead and make a big fat tamale, so I'm going to put it all on here. And I'm going to spread it out. And you can use, these are great little tools. It's about $5 at any cooking store. It's called a bash and chop or pastry scraper. And sometimes you're going to find a piece of vegetable that's bigger than you want. Just pull that out. And I'm just going to spread this evenly all over my wrap here. And this is actually kind of similar to if you were making a raw cinnamon roll, which I also do have a recipe for in one of my books. You would just be spreading out your batter and then you're going to be rolling it. And with these wraps, if you do get, when you're drying them, if you do get it where the wrap is too dry, you just add a little water with your hand like you're spreading lotion on, let it sit for a little bit, and it'll moisten back up. And the other thing you can do is just let this the inner better than beef sit on there for a little while and let it soak up some of that moisture so that when you're actually rolling it, you're going to get a nice soft wrap to roll so it won't crack, because we don't want it to crack when we're rolling it. That's the great thing about dehydrating food is if you over dry it, all you have to do is add a little water back on it with a misting spray bottle, water bottle, or just with your hands. Scoop some water onto it, and I just got to get it over into this corner, and we'll be ready to roll it. So just as evenly as you can distribute it. I'm going to leave this one end with a little filling knot on it because that'll be our end, and I'll have that as extra space there when I'm rolling it so that everything will push forward. So now that I've got it as even as I can, and if I'm pushing a little hard it could crack, so I'm going to be careful. I'm going to take this. Now this had this, I showed you in the last segment, I kept the Teflon sheet underneath it. So what I'm going to do is use that Teflon sheet, I'm going to push it forward, and then I'm going to use that to roll it away from me. It's cracking a little bit, but that's okay. And we're just going to keep rolling and create a nice big pastry kind of roll. Beautiful. And I'm just going to squeeze it a little bit here and pull it onto my cutting board. And now at this point I could freeze this whole thing. It's wrapped up. There's a few cracks in it, but that's okay. It's still going to taste delicious. You could freeze the whole thing and slice it later, or you can just slice it right now, which is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to roll it one more time just to get that edge sealed. And I've got a plate ready to go. You're going to want your plates ready. And okay, so you can cut this into about 12 servings here, so I would just cut that in half, or any size you want, really. You want to use a sawing motion, because if you push too hard, you could actually squish it back down. And you want to keep that roll shape as much as possible. And I'm going to just make a nice, big, fat one right from the center. All right. And just take my knife and put that on the plate. Make it nice and round. And there you go, you've got a tamale. This would be like a beef tamale, really. And the next thing I'm going to show you how to do is how to make a raw vegan hemp sour cream to put on top of that, which is absolutely fabulous. Eat it like this, add a little avocado, which we'll do in a minute, or add your sour cream. So many different ways you can do this. You can also put this in a big romaine leaf and eat it like that. So thank you for joining me for the Better Than Beef, and make sure you go to everyday.tv for your recipe. Thank you.